illnesses, pregnancy complications, and other benefits. The time by Total Woman from Sagicor Life is
6:59 p.m.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also check us out on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube live. In the main watch today, the anti-gang legislation. And in the second watch, the best of Jamaican Christian entities, Food for the Poor, and the Flourish Group. In our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-9973-125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on in the program, but first, as I quote.
The I quote for today is, "It is in obedience that potential is realized." And that is from Stephen Fruitig.
Okay, it is in obedience that potential is realized.
Yes,
so,
sir.
if you listen to the instructions of the Holy Spirit, obedience to who, first of all? Obedience to God? To God, to the Holy Spirit.
I would hope so.
Yes. So, if you're obedient to God, your potential will be realized because you will be fulfilling the perfect will of God. Yes.
You'll be walking in your purpose.
How did I do theologian lecturer today, sir? Kareem, thank you so much for that great I quote. It's a very interesting I quote. I like this one. The main watch will be back after this break.
why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokeley Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
If you want to understand God's promises and plans for you, then you need to start in the pages of the Bible. Moving you forward in your relationship with Jesus Christ, that's what Back to the Bible is all about. Discover truth, wisdom, and direction for your life. Listen to Back to the Bible every weekday afternoon at 12:30 right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm Stokeley Marshall, now quoting the Honorable Minister of National Security, Honorable Dr. Horace Chang. The anti-gang legislation has the level of rigor and relevance to effectively disrupt and dismantle gangs. The formal name of the legislation is the Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organizations Act. In 2021, statistics from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, showed that there are 379 gangs in Jamaica. Let me read that again. 379 gangs in Jamaica. Of this number, 262 are considered active gangs, which reflects an increase of 5% over 2019. While we won't be discussing any specific cases before the courts, we do want to examine the legislation. We have as our guest this morning, Miss Sophia Rowe. She is a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions and a member of the Anti-Gang Unit in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Good morning, Ms. Rowe.
Good morning, Mr. Marshall. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a guest on the program today, especially on this very earth-shattering topic.
Indeed so.
First of all, tell us, what is the anti-gang legislation? What is it about?
All right. So the legislation came into being to target gangs specifically. Before the 2014 enactment.
And I'm going to ask you for a moment. We mean armed gangs, heavily armed gangs.
Heavily armed gangs, first generation, second generation gangs, organized criminal groups. That is the definition of a gang. Organized criminal groups. And it doesn't matter the level of organization. Once they gather in a number of 3 or more to carry out criminal activities, they are considered as an organized group.
Understood.
So when we speak about gangs, that is what we're referring to.
Continue what you were saying.
Right. So I was indicating that before the enactment in 2014, we had no legislation that targeted gangs as a group. What we had was legislation that enabled us to offer an indictment or to charge a specific person. And so we had to go under the principle of joint enterprise and hope that that would hold up in court.
Yes.
When this legislation came into being now, it now allows us to charge persons as a group carrying out gang activities. It allows us to target and disrupt these gangs from the root.
I see. So, in a nutshell, this legislation is helping you to do what previous enactments were not able to do.
That is so. That is
Understood.
so.
So, the genesis or the reason for the legislation is to really be able to prosecute persons who are in gangs carrying out organized criminal activity, primarily with the use of firearms. And some of these gangs are not just gangs in the sense of they just decide to make mayhem and carry out various atrocities, but they are also operating like businesses, aren't they?
They are. They are. And that is why we have different generations. So the ones that would operate as businesses would be second and third generation gangs.
Tell us a little bit
They,
about that, because you did say
the
first and second generation. You're now adding a third layer, third generation. Tell us a little bit
so
about this
it really
generational
depends
type of
the generational
gang.
type. It depends on the
Yes,
organization. Depends really on the organization of the gangs. So
yes.
the loosely organized the street gangs would be first generations. The ones that are more organized that may have sponsors, the business people involved, corporate involved would be second and third
Whoa,
generation.
whoa,
So the
whoa, whoa.
more
Mr. Rowe, Mr. Rowe,
organized
Mr.
and
Rowe, Mr.
involved.
Rowe, stick up in, stick up in, stick up in. You're saying so much, and I don't want you to go so fast that we miss the essence. So you have
Okay.
some gangs,
Right.
very organized, and they are being
Right.
sponsored by businesses to include corporate bodies.
Right.
Just unpack that a little bit for us, if you
All
can,
right.
to the extent that you can.
So as
To
I
the
as I
extent
was
that
saying,
you
when
can.
it comes to second and third generation gangs, these are more organized. They have a more organized structure with a hierarchy. They operate as a business. They have a strong market orientation, and you may find that they have a geographical area, broad geographical area. They may have a centralized and developed leadership, and they may even have the support of established businesses.
And these are established businesses that, to the extent that you can say, Miss Rowe, to the extent that you can
Right.
say, these are established businesses that they formed or that are already out there in the wider marketplace, and they are now sponsoring these gangs.
You have businesses that they may form, and you also have businesses that are already out there and sponsor these gangs.
Okay, you're now taking us into very interesting territory. Continue, Miss Rowe, to help us to understand these generational types of gangs. So you have first, second, and you mentioned third.
The third generation gang now, it is more complex. It is the most complex of the three generations. And it may have what you call now a level of sophistication. It may even be political, might have political attachment. So these are the things that would separate the third
And when you say
generation
political
from the
attachment,
second
you
and the
mean to
first.
politicians who are, whether currently in office or not in office, or members
That
of
is so.
the registered political parties, or one or two of them, as the case may be. But these
Yes,
people have connections with politicians.
yes. Our political association, political parties.
I see. Meaning they might be members or they attach themselves to political
Two.
parties.
Yes.
I see. Very interesting. Now, you recently had conduct of the criminal prosecution of certain cases. I'll just say certain cases. And
Right.
you would have had to deal with some of these types of issues. Without
Yes.
getting into the details of the cases per se, personally, on a personal level, how was that for you, or how has that been for you so far? Because you're dealing with very weighty matters here.
Yes, well, I can speak frankly. I was a part of the team that prosecuted the recently concluded Klansman One faction, that is the black man faction of the Klansman gang.
Yes.
Um, That case was the biggest in terms of gang prosecution in the island. We started out with 33 accused persons, and of the 33, I believe 15 were convicted of the number, including the leader, Andre Blackman Bryan himself, and a few of his top ranking members of his association or his organization. In terms of dealing with these matters, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of planning with the different stakeholders. It takes a lot of research because, as you could imagine, the 2014 enactment and the 2021 amendment is relatively new in regards to our jurisprudence.
Yeah.
And so as we prosecute these matters, we are also building the jurisprudence in this area
At the
of
same
gang
time,
prosecution. Yes.
and you have to be dealing with not only a lot of evidence or evidential material, but witnesses. Can you tell us a little bit about that to the extent that you can do so?
Okay. So in terms of the evidence, it is bulky. It is different types of evidence. We are dealing with, for instance, electronic evidence. We are
Yes.
dealing with medical evidence, forensic evidence.
Yes.
We're dealing with viva voce evidence, evidence given in court on the day.
Yes.
In terms of witnesses, we tend to deal with different classes of witnesses, because what you will find is that when you're prosecuting gang matters, you're not going to find Pastor Jenkins or Sister Mary that is going to come and give you intricate details about the inner runnings of a criminal organization.
Exactly.
So what you will find is that most of these witnesses were part of the gang or closely associated with the gang. So you may well find that the prosecution witness will entail...
Only because we were upon a break. Hold that thought. I know that you were in the middle of your train of thought there, but pause one moment. Listeners,
well.
We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Did you know that many of my schoolmates have an unhealthy diet, especially at school? And now 23% of them are overweight and or obese? And so one less sugary drink at my school may mean one friend less, or 2 or 3, at risk of cavities or diabetes. And if we're serving less foods high in saturated fats, sugar, and sodium, it may reduce our risk from obesity, heart disease, and high blood pressure. The solution is simple, right? Act now. Let's get unhealthy foods and beverages out of our schools.
A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and partners.
Me pull up at the gas station and the attendant come up.
87 or 90.
I don't know why him think I would put 87 in my new car. But me answer him. But when him say
cash or card,
me say, big man, why would I take my cash and buy gas? I pay for everything with my Surgical Bank credit card. Grocery, gas, bills. Cause when you use your card, you get your reward. If I pay cash, you are gonna give me a reward?
Me can wipe your windscreen.
Earn the best rewards ever with Surgical Bank credit cards. Conditions apply.
Hey Jamaica, get ready for the ultimate family-friendly event of the year. The best dressed chicken fun in the sun at the National Stadium. Saturday, April 20th, 10 a.m. Come experience a day filled with delicious food, good music, and great fun. It's activities, job recruitment, health and wellness fair, and a gospel concert like no other of your favorite local and international artists. Saturday, April 20th, save the date and join us for an unforgettable gospel celebration.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today, 876-220-6474 or 876 332-7956. It's the telephone counseling and prayer ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
When you retire, you're still going to get up.
Rise and shine.
You're still going to get out ready for the road because you're retiring from work, not your lifestyle. With a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme, individuals can save up to 20% of their income towards retirement tax-free. So when you've reached retirement, you'll have more than a rocking chair waiting for you.
I'm ready for my day at the spa.
Start saving for your golden years with a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme. Apply online at elife.sagicorjamaica.com.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is the anti-gang legislation. And our guest is Miss Sophia Rowe. Miss Rowe is a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, and she's a member of the anti-gang unit in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Just before the break, Miss Rowe, you were very carefully outlining to us the witnesses who you have to interface with when you are doing cases that you're prosecuting under this legislation. You did, for instance, indicate that some of these witnesses were themselves members of gangs or associated with the gangs. Please continue, Ms. Rowe.
Right. So I was indicating that because this is the case, what you would find is that we would have witnesses with interest to serve, and we would have witnesses that had to be dealt with as accomplices. We also have to deal with vulnerable witnesses, civilian witnesses that may be a part of a certain geographical area that is managed by these criminal groups. And because of that,
managed. When you said managed, I mean, it just takes another zone, but I know why you said managed.
Right. I am trying to be forensic.
According to these gangs, they are managing areas.
That is so.
Even though we as citizens may not know that's what is happening, but they are managing these areas.
They are managing in their words, a turf.
They are managing anything. But anyway, that's probably my personal go continue, Miss Rowe. Continue.
Right. So residents that live in these areas that are affiliated to these gangs, they are, hesitant to participate in the trial process. And so many times we have to offer these persons witness protection, if they so desire. And many times also the accomplices, we have to enter into plea negotiations with them to allow them to accept their part in the crime and also give evidence against their cronies. So it is a very sensitive area in regards to witnesses, and it is a balancing exercise that we must get right in order to succeed.
And without getting into the details of what may or may not have occurred, what have the experiences been like in having those witnesses give evidence in a situation or in circumstances where you have defense counsel who might be attacking the credibility of some of these witnesses?
Right. So it's interesting that you asked that question, but it is an exercise where we, on the prosecution side, we have to present the witnesses as they are. We have to emphasize that the regular man, the ordinary man on the road, would not know the intricate runnings of a gang.
Would not.
It would have to be someone on the inside.
Definitely.
And so we do not present these witnesses as paragons of virtue. However, it does not mean that because they are criminals or persons engaged in criminal activities, they cannot be believed.
Understood. I find it interesting that you coached it that way, because it does not mean that they cannot be believed, because they are the ones who are there. They
That
know
is so.
exactly what was happening. They're not making it up. They didn't read it in a book.
Yes.
Miss Rowe, I would like to return to the whole matter of second and third generation gangs. If you could unravel that or unpack that for us a little bit more.
Right.
Because what many persons might be having a struggle understanding, hearing you speak this morning,
Right.
is just how much, you even use the word managed,
Right.
just how much the island is probably segmented by these
Right.
gangs, controlled by these gangs. Some of these gangs have businesses, and some of them forge alliances with legitimate businesses, it would appear,
Yes.
and get sponsorship from them. You didn't really explain what sponsorship means. Any comments, Miss Rowe?
Okay, so to tread lightly, we mostly have first and second generation gangs here.
Yes.
And what you will find is that for the first generation gangs, they are loosely organized, they defend the turf, and they carry out ad hoc activities.
Yes.
For the second generation gangs, the bigger gangs, the more organized gangs, you will find that they have a structure, they have a leader, they have lieutenants, they have a geographical area which they man, and we use those words loosely, and
Yeah.
they also have legitimate businesses that work along with them in terms of funding them. Sometimes you may find that this is as a result of extortion.
I was going to ask about
Right.
that. You have got
Yes.
there. Go ahead.
But sometimes there are persons that willingly work with the gangs for protection also.
I see. I see.
So
And
it is complex.
you said that it's mostly first and second, but do we?
Yes.
What about any comments you would like to share on third generation gangs, or further comments if you can? If
Not
you
at this moment, but there there may be, but perhaps loosely associated with political organizations.
You did mention that earlier on.
Yes.
And in terms of the political associations, one of the challenges I can imagine for a politician is he or she is in power. They do not necessarily know who they're interfacing with.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of asking myself the question, what, if anything, has to be done to cauterize that connection between any gang member, whether second generation, second generation, or third generation, and the politician protecting himself or herself from becoming an asset to this gang or these gangs? I don't know if you have anything to say there, or if that is a little bit outside of your.
That is out of my remit. That is definitely out of my remit.
And
Certainly.
continuing, Miss Rowe, in terms of preparing for a future case or gathering any information, or because the police arguably, I'm assuming, would be providing this information.
Yes.
Do the police seek the intervention of your office at various stages prior to them arresting and charging, or is it exclusively a situation where they do all the work on the outside and they come and say, here, this is the case. See, this is it.
No.
Or is there some collaboration that takes place along the way?
There is ongoing collaboration. There is a special task force that is set up by the JCF that deals with gangs. and there's the anti-gang unit in my office, as you know. So these two units work closely together from the inception, from the investigative stages, right up until the matter is brought to court.
So much to unpack, and there's so much more we could ask, but alas, we're almost out of time. Changing gears a little bit, Miss Rowe.
Yes.
Jurors. Sometimes you have a challenge having persons wanting to be jurors in the first place.
And this is in general, because the anti-gang is a judge alone trial.
Exactly. So I'm speaking in general.
General. Okay, yes.
Yes, I did say I was changing gears.
Right.
Any words you want to leave with us there?
I would just want to encourage my citizens to give off their service in terms of turning up for jury duty. It is a very important part of the wheel of justice. It is a part that has to be played by our Jamaicans, and it is a part that keeps the wheel running. Without the jurors, we are unable to dispose of most of the criminal matters before the court. So I will just encourage my citizens, if it is that you're called upon to serve as a juror, please take up the mantle.
I think we have to leave it there this morning. I want to thank you, Ms. Rowe, for spending some time with us this morning on the Morning Watch. You have said some things which are very earth-shattering and seismic, and we wish for you all the best. And we actually, I would even go as far as to say, we will pray for you, Ms. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
And for the entire Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We send greetings to King's Counsel, Ms. Paula Llewellyn, who is the director of that office. Thank you, Ms. Rowe, for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Listeners, we'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Anything possible with a little savings in your hand.
The time by Jan Bank is
7:30.
In life, the more you have to lose.
The more you love, the more you worry. The more you own, the less you sleep.
The more people rely on you, the more you have on your mind.
I have peace of mind,
knowing that whatever I own
and whoever I care about are covered by the very best.
With Sagicor Life and Advantage General, get life, health, and general insurance to help you protect what matters most.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
It's not over.
Listen to words of upliftment in Something More with Bishop Harold Blair, brought to you by the Faith Cathedral Deliverance Center.
And he cried out to God. Have you been there? Have you been there when it seems as if you've been left all alone and no one cares for you? No one gives to you a word of comfort or consolation. But as you lift up your eyes to the hills from whence cometh your help, the Lord heard your cry.
That's Something More with Bishop Harold Blair. Something More comes to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
It's not over till it's over. And it ain't over yet. Oh, it's not over.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the part, travel far, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jan Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jan Bank will help you find a way.
If you want to understand God's promises and plans for you, then you need to start in the pages of the Bible. Moving you forward in your relationship with Jesus Christ, that's what Back to the Bible is all about. Discover truth, wisdom, and direction for your life. Listen to Back to the Bible every weekday afternoon at 12:30 right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have in Loop Jamaica News, income tax threshold moves to $1.7 million from $1.5 million. And we have in the Gleaner, opposition concerned about announced changes government procurement. And we have in the Observer, and this story is at page 3, very interesting story, FinSac Commission findings to be made public. FinSac Commission findings to be made public. And this is against the backdrop of, the concerns about when that report would have been published. And we have on the front page of the Daily Observer, brawl downtown during swearing in of KSAMC councillors. And the main page on the front story of the Jamaica Observer, the Daily Observer, good news budget, income tax threshold increased, more benefits for pensioners. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, what are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokeley Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101. You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We'll give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your worth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marsh. Let's join Kareem for a look at how our Facebook and WhatsApp friends answer today's question. What are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? Kareem.
Okay, I'm looking here. I'm not seeing any responses on WhatsApp yet, I'm not seeing any on Facebook as yet. Maybe you should repeat the question and
what are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? What are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? Well, keep those comments coming in if they're on their way, and if there are any towards the end of the program, we take another look. we move right into the second watch. The list of Jamaican entities that are making strides in Jamaica is not exhausted. And this morning we have two more to look at. One that's established itself as a staple in Jamaica, and there is also another. We have as our guest today, Mrs. Fiona Burke, founder and executive director of the Flourish Group. The Flourish Group. We also have Mrs. Petrianne Irons. She's the communications manager of Food for the Poor. Food for the Poor, of course, is very well known and is a staple in the island of Jamaica. Good morning, ladies. How are you both?
Good morning.
Good
I am
morning.
well.
And Miss Burke, Mrs. Burke.
Yes,
now,
sir.
A quick one here. When did both organizations start? And are you registered under any particular legislation? I assume the Charities Act will be the governing law that you're both registered under now. And tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing, starting with Food for the Poor.
Hi, morning again. Thanks for having us. Awesome platform to share what's happening with Food for the Poor. So we started our operations in the 1980s, 1982 to be exact, when our founder Ferdinand Mahfoud would have been moved by the poverty he was seeing in Jamaica, and he decided to make a change. Now we became officially incorporated in Jamaica as a charity in 1983. And since then, we have been looking at ways to empower and uplift the poorest of the poor in Jamaica through various programs, of course, various ministries, as we call them, including housing and education and food distribution. We have agricultural projects, a number of programs aimed at making a difference and improving the lives of those we serve. So that's it in a nutshell.
For Food for the Poor. And Mrs. Burke, the Flourish
Yes.
Group.
Right. So the Flourish Group
And if
started.
I could ask to pause one moment, it started as a mentorship program.
Right. So we started in 2015 as a mentorship program for teenage girls in Red Hill, St. Andrew. And then when COVID came, we were literally put on a sudden pause. And so now we have finally figured out, a way to come back bigger and better and, more effectively. And we've actually, I would call it, metamorphosized into a group, as you have indicated. And so now it's not just mentorship for teenage girls, but it's a whole lot more. It's empowerment for women. It's many other things. But we were incorporated and all of that, registered under the Charities Act in 2017 as Flourish Mentorship Program. So now we're actually in the process of, doing the name change and all the necessary adjustments that we need to do to fit who we are now and where we're going.
And the name change would be to the Flourish Group.
Right.
Okay. And Food for the Poor is also registered under the Charities Act, Mrs. Irons, to your knowledge?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And the Flourish Group, Mrs. Burke, the Flourish Group is also catering to girls and boys?
Yes.
In addition to women?
Right. So that's our main target.
Okay. Now, Food for the Poor, Mrs. Irons, does a lot of work with persons who have challenges financially, etc.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, our cohort is not limited because we have poor persons in every sector, every demography. So we seek to assist with intentional programs for each demography. As I mentioned earlier, we have
men, women, children. That's what
yes, every category. Those who are single mothers, single fathers, or farmers, or fishermen, or education program, for example, we target students at all levels, basic, secondary, tertiary level, assisting in whatever way we can. So it covers all cross sections of society.
Understood. And Mrs. Burke, in terms of the Flourish Group, tell us a little bit about the kind of work you're doing, because it's not the same as Food for the Poor, obviously.
Right.
You started as a mentorship program, which seems to be the kernel of what you were thinking of initially, mentoring persons.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Okay, so part of what we used to do is events. So we would go into schools, we would go to girls' days, we would do all this kind of thing. One of our expertise is actually in event coordination. So a lot of times it's almost like we would plan this, externally. So we just go into the school and we would do like a general, assembly with all the students or all the girls, and then the breakout sessions and that kind of thing. All of that would be
And
coordinated.
what do you talk about and what do you discuss with them?
Well, most times the schools would have themes.
I see.
Different things. And it's always focused on empowering the girls. So it's a girls' day, and so it's who they are and all of that. So,
but you seem
we
to
would
now
have
be
different
dealing with boys as well in schools.
Yes, because it initially came out of people asking, what about the boys? What about the boys? Within my community. And
Yes.
then we actually ended up going into Pembroke Hall High School. And of course, it's a co-ed institution. And so we couldn't be doing an intervention for the girls and not include the boys. So that just automatically
It was
happens.
about
So something
empowering
that,
the boys as well. It was about empowering the boys as well. Or
yes. So what we would do is have simultaneous sessions. So we'd have sessions with the girls in one room, and then sessions with men speaking to the boys in another room.
Understood.
Right.
Understood. How has that been so far?
It was good. And I think we were very heartbroken, the school as well as us, when what happened is that, remember when COVID came and then schools just shut down, basically cold turkey. So they went off for...
Hold that thought.
Okay.
1 second, Mrs. Burt, because I do see where we are now upon a break. Listeners, please stay with us. Very interesting topic. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Yes, we get this last cheese. Tasty beat. Brothers and sisters, at the end of Easter service, we have cheese. Tasty beat. Oh, and if we get the bun and cheese. Tasty beat. Serve, sell me some bun and cheese. Tasty beat.
Wow, it's very nice with some tasty cheese.
Tasty beat. Can I have some cheese, please? Tasty beat. Make we get on real bad with the tasty cheese, boy.
Tasty beat with tasty cheese.
Chances are you're sitting in your car right now, or even a taxi, and you're stuck in traffic. But if you had a Flow prepaid plan, you would have unlimited data for navigation apps, so you could avoid much of the traffic and find a better way. So you would avoid bad driving Bobby to your right, who is boring into your lane, and singing Sasha, who doesn't realize everyone can see her. Now, Flow's unlimited social and talk prepaid plans come with unlimited data for navigation apps and more TikTok data than any use data. Get a 7-day Flow prepaid plan for only $950. Get your plan. Download the Top Up Flow app. Conditions apply.
Home is where you put down your roots. So at Sagicor Bank, we designed a mortgage with everything you need to own your home easier. Get up to 100% financing, fast processing time, up to $100,000 cash back to assist with expenses, a competitive interest rate, plus an unsecured loan of up to $2 million to go solar at home, and a special rate on home insurance. Let's help you put down your roots. Call 888 Sagicor to apply for your Sagicor Bank mortgage. Conditions apply.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with Attorney at Law Stokeley Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
Well, if you want buy appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on a Bashco. Get it on a Bashco. 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 Be everything where you need. Bashco. Quality service guaranteed and Bashco. Bashco. The store that gives you more. Yeah. Bashco. Get furniture for your house, bed linen, everything for your kitchen, rug mugs and more at Bashco. The store that gives you more. Bashco.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and the topic is the best of Jamaican Christian entities, food for the poor, and the Flourish Group. And we have as our guest Mrs. Fiona Burke, founder and executive director of the Flourish Group, and Mrs. Petrian Irons, communications manager of Food for the Poor. Mrs. Burke, just before the break, you were indicating to us, how you are finding the work that you are doing. Please continue.
Yes, it was going very well. And then schools just literally closed.
Yes, you said they shut down because of the COVID restrictions.
Right. So they went off for Ash Wednesday break and just didn't come back.
I see.
Right. So that's how that ended. And we had to end in the community as well because, we had the restrictions in terms of how many people could meet and all of that.
Yes,
so Flourish, as it was at that time, literally was just stopped.
I see.
Right.
I don't know if it's me or if it is your line or what, but you seem to be sounding a little bit low. We'll see what we can do to fix that or correct that. But
okay.
Mrs. Petrian Irons, Mrs. Irons, I hope we haven't lost Petrian Irons. Mrs. Burke, continuing with you, one of the things that seems to have that seems to be occurring now, it would appear in your program, is that you're picking up things as you do the work. So it would appear as if you're seeing where the children really are in need of having a clear sense of self.
Definitely.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because you see, we in the first watch, it might appear unrelated on the surface, but in the first watch, we looked at anti-gang legislation. And if, for example, a young boy knows who he is, maybe he won't seek the protection and the camaraderie, so to speak, if I can even call it that, of a gang.
And I fully agree.
Talk about that whole matter of identity and having a sense of self and self-awareness in terms of the work that you find yourself doing now.
Right. I believe that the root issue of a lot of the things that we're seeing, not even just among teenagers, but since that's our focus, I believe that that's what it's rooted in. Just not knowing who they are, even as a race, as Black people or as Jamaicans.
I'm glad you went there too. I didn't plan for you to go there, but continue.
Right. We laud our athletes.
As Black people, yes.
Yes, we laud our athletes. We laud, our comedians. We laud people. And, yes, we're great. And, when it comes to Olympics and all that. But I don't think we realize that we are all great. And we all have the same kind of potential. We think, there's the Bolts and the Shelleys and there's the, you know what I mean? But I don't think that we know and believe in ourselves that we too are born for greatness or that we too have the ability. It's always everybody else,
Yes.
And so I feel like if we tackle that issue, because even as you mentioned, the gangs, a lot of the things that, we attribute that to is boys not having, growing up with their fathers or having male mentors and that kind of thing. But then if these same young men who, don't have that kind of guidance met their Heavenly Father, developed a relationship with Him, they would know that He is their Father.
Exactly.
And so that would give them the confidence within themselves that they need.
Exactly.
It would make such a difference, I believe. So that's one of our missions as the Flourish Group. And whatever opportunity we get to do that. So if we're invited to come into a school, as a guest speaker or something, any opportunity that we can get to deliver this message to them. You were created to flourish. You were
created to flourish.
Yes. So that's for the girls. That's what we say. Created to flourish. So that's like the tagline.
Yeah,
and for the boys, it's called Roar. And it's from, Genesis 1, where it talks about us, God giving us dominion
Roar
and
as
ruling.
how a lion would roar.
Yes, sir. And so the tagline for Roar is born to rule. So we want to let these young men know you were born to be leaders. Because, we develop this mentality, especially the young men. Oh, woman for mind me, I'm gonna have to work and we're going to scamming and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if they knew we are to be leaders, we are to be the head of the household, we are to be, take charge, we were given dominion over the earth, then I believe we wouldn't see a lot of what we're seeing now.
Understood. Now, tell us a little bit about the work that you do with adult women, because you have that component as well. What are some of the things that you find yourself having to deal with there as a Christian entity, even though you don't necessarily wear it on your sleeve that you're a Christian entity, but that's what you are. You go into these situations, and I'm assuming when you talk to women as a group, you may not necessarily be going in there to preach the gospel per se. You're going in there to do other types of work, but you're doing it as a Christian. So tell us about that.
Right. So I'm going to tell you, I think it would have been the last event that we did. It was last year, the Sunday closest to Valentine's Day.
Yes.
There are a group of women within the community that we work in Red Hills so they work in the wholesales, they work in the cash pot shop, they work in the little shops, they work in and around the center of the community. And we had an event called Loved, where we brought them together on a Sunday evening, because most of them work 6 days a week. They work Sunday.
Work hard.
Right, they work really hard. Most of them have children, single mothers, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there are times when I would go into the wholesale and hear people, as we would say, the young people would say, style them, speak down to them and thing. And we wanted them to bring them together, to fet them and to let them know you are loved.
Uplift them.
Yes, you are loved.
Uplift.
And because I mean them in the jeans and t-shirt every day, or the work clothes. And they dressed up very nicely and came out, and we gave them dinner, we gave them, non-alcoholic wine, that kind of thing. And we just spoke into their lives. We gave them gifts. And the person who hosted actually spoke into their lives and prayed for them. And it was so beautiful and so powerful. And there was no dry eye in the room. Even us, who were sharing with them, there were it was just so amazing to see. It's like, I think they would have felt in that moment like Hagar. Wow, God sees me and knows me, because she spoke directly even to some of them and their situations with their children. And I know that they left feeling loved and feeling special.
Not the way they walked into that space.
Right. And it wasn't, oh, you must become a Christian, you mustn't be shacking up. It wasn't anything like that.
And you would have planted some seeds, I assume.
Yes.
You would have probably planted some seeds. I think we have Mrs. Irons back with us now. Mrs. Irons, I'm so sorry we lost you for a little while there.
Trust me, technology.
Okay.
You can prepare.
I want to quickly, in the limited time left, I just want to quickly shift gears because Mrs. Irons, I think you're beginning to do some new types of work at Food for the Poor, or continuing to do things, but at a different, in a different way. So you seem to be now even helping persons with, agricultural projects, helping people to find ways to empower themselves financially at an entrepreneurial level. Can you comment on that?
Sure. So persons know Food for the Poor for food first, and then housing, and we are known for giving help in a lot of ways. But what we want to be intentional about, I would like to say, is to help persons become more sustainable. So our drive is something that we're calling Build Back the Love for Jamaica. And it's really a campaign that focuses on offering income generating options to those that we serve. We don't just want to give a fish, as we know that quote, not just to give a fish, but to teach persons how to, so they can become less dependent.
Sustainable means helping them to generate their own income.
Generate their own income and help themselves, their families, and even look at helping others within their communities. And that way, more persons are assisted. I mean, we know that the word tells us that the poor will always be with us, but we also want to ensure that we are empowering persons to move from that level into another level. And that's what this drive is about. We are pushing sustainability, and sustainability for us is not just financial. It's also about, as Ms. Burke would have mentioned, pouring into the lives of our individuals, of our citizens, and ensuring that they are empowered mentally first. So that they can actually live out the physical help that they get. And I'm just so happy for this opportunity to even hear about the Flourish Group and what you're doing, because we have countless programs where we target young people. We have an Angels of Hope program, for example, where we help.
Well, you're both on the platform this morning. Maybe you can make a connection.
Exactly. I would love that. I would love that connection to help our young people that we serve physically to be able to empower through the Flourish Group, because there is certainly a great need for it.
I think we have to leave it there this morning. I think we're completely out of time, but I want to thank you, Mrs. Burke and Mrs. Anse, for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your contributions. Just before we wrap today, we just want to read one comment that came in terms of the feedback question. What are your thoughts on the anti-gang efforts? Kareem?
Okay, so this message came in. There is no name attached to it. It said, "Good morning, Sir Kareem and company. Clean the head of the stream and there might be a clearer outlook. You can't expect normalcy when some of our nation's leaders are the strongholds." Oh,
that one is pretty heavy.
Wow.
Well, thank you all listeners for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. Visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs, and listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app, and download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokeley Marsh, and hanging back to Love in the Morning with Kareem.
Thank you for listening to Morning Watch here on the family station Love 101 FM. You are now invited to listen to the program Forward in Faith, brought to you by the New Testament Church of God in Bayside, Port Moore.
Gently will lead us away to heaven's blessed glorious shore. I'm living my
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Forward in Faith. Forward in Faith, it is the radio voice